Thank you for coming today, and I'd like to introduce myself first. My name is Ignaty Dyakov, and as you may hear from my accent, I'm from Russia originally. But I live in London now, and what I'm doing here is I consult people and businesses which want to go to Russia and grow in Russia. Normally, it starts with growing within the Russian market, Russian-speaking market here in the UK and in London in particular, and then companies understand that actually there are many more opportunities just 4 hours away from London in Russia. So today, I'd like to briefly tell you about the opportunities in Russia and what Russia is. I'm sure some of you will know the background of the country and the economy there, but it's never bad to talk about it again. We'll talk about the background of Russian customers and the culture of Russia in general, and the certain facts which are important to take into consideration. We'll talk about how to connect with Russian customers and how to understand the correct etiquette, and then I hope that you will have some questions as well, and we'll make this session a bit more interactive. So, what is Russia? Well, some people here might think that, oh, that's big spenders, yeah, and that's what we've got on this map. Yeah, Russia somehow in the past 20 years is well associated with wealth. And rightly so. There's plenty of money in Russia, and there are plenty of opportunities to get this money. But on a more serious note, it's one of the largest countries, well, it's actually the largest country in the world by its territory. But at the same time, it's only 8th country in the world in terms of population. So massive territory, 11 time zones, 10 hours flight between eastern and western parts. And at the same time, we only have 143 million people. Compare it to giants like China, Indonesia, India, and you'll see that actually not so many people live in the country per square meter. Two major cities are located in the so-called European part of Russia, Moscow and St. Petersburg. They both account for about 20 million people living there. And at the same time, they're both in the same part of the country, but they're separated by 400-mile strip. Yeah, the London to Edinburgh distance is smaller. So it just gives you an understanding of how big is the country and how big is the market in terms of its territory and in terms of the challenges you may get there when you actually export into the country. Russia is a growing economy. Some people would still refer to it as a developing country. I would say that we should get rid of this notion. It is a developed economy, but it is an emerging and growing one. Figure I have here is 4% per year. It seems like it is getting lower this year, but it will be around 2.5%, as they predict. The debt situation in Russia is pretty good, and again, on a macroeconomic level, it shows that there is potential for growth. There is an institute called Valdai Forum, and what they predict is, in the best case scenario, by 2013, Russia will be at the same level of development as Switzerland. Well, as a Russian myself, I'd love to live in 2013 in their best case scenario, and suddenly find myself in Switzerland. But even the worst case scenario looks promising and says that the economic level of the Czech Republic is quite achievable for Russia as well. Russian wealth. Yeah, we talked that Russia is associated with wealth quite frequently, and rightly so. We've got 300 plus families who have $100 million each, and that's only officially. Yes, we will be talking about certain challenges in Russia and certain stereotypes about Russia when we mention that actually official statistics is not necessarily showing the real situation in Russia. And we've got 180,000 families who have $1 million each or more. But what is more interesting, I guess, for the audience here is actually the middle class, because these are people who would buy more and more services from the UK and from Europe in general. And since 2000, the Russian middle class has grown from 15% to 25%. Yeah, so we have 143 million people living in the country, 25% of them is middle class, and it is growing very quickly. When we talk about their income, we should think about income as a disposable income, in fact, because the tax is flat rate. It's only 13%. So we are not talking about massive amounts taken from them by the tax authorities. And then normally Russians wouldn't have mortgages. They tend to have less amount of loans. And so actually the amount of money they've got left in their pockets is rather high. And that should be taken into consideration when you analyze potential customers in the country. I've got also one figure here, which is the cost of coffee in Moscow. And that's again to illustrate that when you take one figure without its context, it can be actually very decisive, I would say. Because when you look at this, $4.50 for a cup of latte, and to be honest, it's not normally the best latte in the world, it's kind of rip-off. And you would think, yeah, great, lots of opportunities there. If people can buy coffee for £4 easily, then potentially they're wealthy. Well, some of them are wealthy, but the vast majority wouldn't consider going to the coffee shop regularly and buying this coffee. Because it's a different mentality, it's a different culture. In the Russian culture, you don't go to the coffee shop for your takeaway coffee every morning. And thus, this figure doesn't illustrate that people are spending this money regularly. What it illustrates is that actually, for certain products, you can charge a lot of money. And then you should think carefully how you present your product in such a way that people are willing to pay this sort of money. And in case of coffee, it's just the whole floor and the whole idea that actually when you drink coffee, you look cool. You look more Western. You look like you've achieved something in this life. And that's why people are ready to pay this amount of money. Well, here I will have a list of challenges one may find in Russia. And the buzzword, it seems, in the media is corruption. Everyone wants to hear about corruption. When I was in Manchester last week talking about a similar topic, I unfortunately had a shorter presentation, and I didn't have time to talk about this slide in particular. And everyone in the room started saying, okay, but it was good presentation, and we learned a lot. But you know, you didn't mention something about the very important topic, corruption in Russia. And Helen said that actually this slide should be not number 8, it should be number 1, to dispel certain myths. Well, corruption is present in Russia, full stop. Yes, it is there, and we should acknowledge it, both as Russians and as US exporters to Russia. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that the only way to do business in Russia is through corrupt schemes. It is not, and there are plenty of examples of how you can do business without paying any bribes or getting into any weird schemes. Personally, I used to have business in Russia myself before I relocated to London, and I was fine during the entire period of running the company, and I know plenty of people in small and medium-sized businesses who would run their companies without being involved in corruption. What I normally say to our clients when we meet and when we discuss corrupt schemes and bureaucracy, they say never ever touch this. You may well be approached by someone and asked for a bribe, and it's not uncommon, but just say no. And it's absolutely fine to say no. And it doesn't mean that you won't do any business in Russia. You will be absolutely fine, and you will be actually much safer if you stay away from any illegal issues. At the same time, be patient, because you may be approached once, you may be approached twice, you may be approached 3 times in a row. And yet if you say no, 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 they will leave you alone and you will just carry on doing business. Second buzzword in Russia is bureaucracy. It's very much tied with corruption. And here I would say, well, treat it as a game. We all were children. We all played games with our friends. Sometimes rules were imposed to us, and we really didn't understand these rules. We didn't want these rules, but we wanted to play. And so we would agree with certain rules to enjoy the process and to get these benefits from the game itself. Treat Russian bureaucracy in the absolutely same way. There are certain rules, even if you don't understand them, just ignore it. Just do whatever they ask you to do. Stay within law and carry on. And before you start doing any business in Russia, just put it into your business plan. Allow enough time for bureaucratic procedures. Russians tend to learn very fast, and the increasing number of Russians speak English and speak quite good level of English, but it's not as widespread as one would imagine. Still, if you do business in regions, yes, and we're talking about massive territory of Russia, if you go outside of Moscow and outside of St. Petersburg, and you travel further, you travel to the Far East, you travel to Urals, you travel to south of Russia, people may not be able to understand you when you speak in English. And the only antidote here, I would say, is learn Russian. It's not a difficult language, it's fun to learn, and it actually opens up the whole cultural background of Russia, so you would be able to enjoy your experience there even more. There is certain mistrust in entrepreneurs in Russia. That's the kind of what we've inherited from the Soviet past. But here, all of us, all entrepreneurs, Russian entrepreneurs and British business people, will have to just gradually educate people and say that entrepreneurship is not equal bad. That entrepreneurship is good, and there are certain benefits which business brings to people. Again, be patient. Yeah, patience is probably one of the most important words when you do business in Russia. On a more positive side, we'll talk about building relationships. When you come to Russia and you don't know where to go, the best way is to stop and think, what would you do in your normal life generally? Well, you would try to find friends around you. And that's exactly what you should do in Russia. And maybe even more important it is in Russia to find friends. In Russia, they say that you find friends first and then you do business. And please, please, don't underestimate this. You should find a local partner, a local friend who would help you and explain how Russia works. It would save you a lot of energy and a lot of time a lot of money this way. And building relationships, as you well know, is not an easy task. So it takes time. And again, being pragmatic, just put it into your business plan. We talked a little bit about the size of the country, so you'll have to be very careful in terms of identifying your market. A lot of Western companies would go to Moscow, and there are good reasons for it. There is money there, it is close to Europe, there are plenty of people talking English, and of course there's a lot of expertise there. But beyond Moscow, there are lots of opportunities there, and these opportunities are underestimated yet. And why the companies actually go beyond Moscow? They travel 1, 2, 3 hours further away and find excellent markets for their goods and for their services. And in country as big as Russia is, you can imagine that travel does affect people's attitude towards time. And so takes it easy and show how time is important to you, and that you actually want to work to deadlines, you want to work to certain time frames. And again, be patient and educate people about it. But it may not be as straightforward as it is in this country, when you send an email and you would expect a response within a day. It may not work like this in Russia. So just take it easy. Oops. And it doesn't seem to be working. It doesn't seem to be working. One more thing here, which I should probably mention in the very beginning, that the opportunities in Russia are actually much closer than you think they are. When I just came here and I had 15 minutes to just walk around, I first found a Russian company exhibiting here. Then I found a company which is exporting to Russia. And then I found several gentlemen walking with their badges carrying Russian surnames. And that's all about Russia, just in this very building. So when you think about all of these things which I was talking about, like building relationships, learning about the country, understanding its habits, you can actually find a lot of it in this very city and in this very country. There are lots of Russians around us, and there are lots of British companies who have experience with Russia and who are normally more than happy to share their experience. On this slide, I wanted to show the opportunities within the state sector. And state sector in Russia is massive. State buys a lot, and it spends money from oil and gas onto lots of projects. And although they may not seem to be relevant to our current exhibition and to our current topic, it's actually indirectly there is business for all of us. When people build airports, when they build headquarters, when they build infrastructure projects, they always need services which would accompany all of these construction projects. So there may be there may be opportunities for companies exporting broadcast and television products in Russia to come into these big construction projects and to serve there. Theaters, well, I have an example of monasteries. That's a very recent renovation project for one of the biggest monasteries in Russia. Cultural projects in general, they all require expertise which we have in this room, and it can be expertise in terms of services, and it can be expertise in terms of goods as well. But it can be software, machinery, equipment, and in terms of services, PR services, financial, legal services. All of these is needed in Russia, and the state itself is also spending money on it on a regular basis. Very briefly, this slide here is how you would set up in Russia. So what I'm saying to our clients first, normally, is you don't really need to set up in Russia to do business there. You can in our world of globalization, in our world when we are really connected by internet, you can actually be present here and at the same time trade in Russia. But if you decide that that's the right time for you to go there and to set up your representative body there, you can choose from one of these three options. One being opening a permanent representative office, which will be basically your business card in the country. You won't be able to do any business activities, which is good from the tax point of view, because you won't have to pay for it, to pay much taxes there. On the other hand, without really doing business there, is it worth investing into your business card? So a lot of companies would actually opt for opening a branch office or subsidiary company in Russia, both of which can do business. They both can trade and they can get money, and this money can be easily got out of country. So there are no restrictions in terms of moving of currencies between the borders, across the borders. But there are some certain nuances, legal nuances, between branch office and subsidiary company in Russia. And again, most commonly, foreign companies would opt for opening a subsidiary company, which would be a separate body, and so on. But I can't stress enough that it's really important to identify a local partner to work with. Whatever form this partner, whatever help this partner will provide to you, doesn't matter. What matters is that you have someone to come to and talk to and ask questions, and you will have plenty of questions as in any other market. In the last 2 minutes, I would like to just draw your attention to these slides, certain issues which you have to have in consideration. So first of all, it's a different alphabet in Russia, which you may be well aware of. So make sure that you know this and that you adjust your marketing materials accordingly. Then Facebook is great in Russia, but we've got our own analog of it, which is called UKTI, and there are plenty of other things like this in Russia. So never assume that what is here is actually what people would use in Russia. Same example with Google. Yeah, Google is big, but it's by no means, it is not the biggest search engine in Russia. We've got our own. Amazon is only trying to get in Russia. PayPal just got in Russia. So there are lots of other things there. And even if Twitter is in Russia, it's actually coming back to the first line, it's Twitter in Cyrillic. So again, accommodate your plans accordingly and make sure that you understand that you have to make proper research first, even if it is just about internet. There are some resources here which I would suggest. Being very modest person, of course, I would put there our Facebook page and Twitter page. So Russia Local is the company which I'm running here. We are based in London, and on our Facebook and Twitter we normally provide a lot of information about business opportunities in Russia, news and trends in the Russian economy. And then there are these journalists and these companies which provide news daily on the internet. And there is a bunch of foreign journalists based in Moscow who would tweet a lot. And again, it's a good opportunity to understand what the country is about and what opportunities we've got in the country. And finally, I would like to say that actually UKTI has a lot of expertise themselves as well as there's City Business Library, if you are based in London, is full of resources for you. And there are chambers of commerce, some of which have good resources and good advisors as well. So you may want to check them as well.